All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be exploring a topic that, can be really confusing and is so often misrepresented: the world of kink and BDSM. So many depictions out there just blur these lines, and it makes it super hard to tell the difference between a safe, consensual expression of sexuality and, well, what is just plain harm. This explainer is going to tackle that head on. How can we actually tell the difference? Yeah, this quote really captures that disorienting and frankly terrifying world we sometimes see in stories. It's from a fictional piece called The Retreat, and it paints a picture where surrender isn't a choice, it's a violation. And that's the perfect place for us to start, to really understand the confusion. And that's the thing, right? These fictional stories are so powerful because they often borrow the look and feel of kink. The ropes, the power dynamics, the idea of surrender, but they twist it to tell these really dark stories about control and abuse. The aesthetics are deceiving. And when you start looking across these different narratives, you see these really clear and pretty disturbing patterns emerge. There's deception, like in The Retreat, where a fun getaway becomes a total nightmare. There's betrayal, coercion through these messed up apps like Candy Girl, and systems built just for exploitation. The one thing that ties them all together? A complete and total disregard for consent, which paints a picture that is, let's be honest, pretty scary. Okay, but what if there's a whole other side to this? What if the reality is way more complicated? To understand that, we have to step away from the fiction and turn to actual scientific research. We need a framework that can give us some much-needed clarity. And that brings us to this. This is a 2021 peer-reviewed study out of New Mexico State University. It was published in the journal Sexual and Relationship Therapy. And just look at the title: Curative Kink: Survivors of Early Abuse Transform Trauma Through BDSM. This offers a completely, and I mean completely different perspective. So the study dives into this really fascinating concept they call trauma play. Now hang on, because this isn't about just reliving something horrible. Not at all. It's about consciously and deliberately reworking it. It's about using a consensual BDSM scene as a tool to engage with and ultimately transform a traumatic memory. So the big question is, how can something that on the surface might look a little bit like trauma actually be therapeutic? Well, the study found 6 core mechanisms, 6 specific ways that this transformation can happen for some survivors. So these 6 themes, they came directly from interviews with trauma survivors, and they show a really clear path. It's about using community norms to stay safe, about rebuilding a sense of self that was damaged by abuse, reclaiming your own personal power, and even, get this, repurposing behaviors in a way that's a lot like gradual exposure therapy. But it's all happening inside a framework that is built on consent and on trust. And this quote from one participant, Khalil, just perfectly illustrates that idea of reclaiming control. He contrasts his childhood abuse with his BDSM practice today. He says his stepmother would never stop no matter what he said. But with his partner, they stop, instantly, at a safe word. That safe word is a guarantee of safety and control that was completely missing from the original trauma. It's a game changer. Okay, so with all that in mind, now we can really draw that unmistakable line. That bright, clear line between the two worlds we've been looking at, the fictional stories of abuse and the potential for real-world healing. And when you put them side by side like this, the contrast at the heart of our question is just, it's night and day. On one side, you have curative kink, which is built on a foundation of enthusiastic consent, communication, and empowering each other. On the other side, you have these abusive stories built on deception, manipulation, and exploitation. They might share some of the same window dressing, but their foundations are polar opposites. The research paper is super clear about how this safety gets built. The BDSM community has developed what the authors call structural safeguards. Think of them like established norms, things like safe words, consent negotiation, aftercare. They're all specifically designed to maximize the good stuff and reduce the risk. And then you contrast that with the fictional apps from those stories, which are basically designed as inescapable traps. I mean, they use hypnotic videos to implant suggestions, they create these one-sided economies just for exploitation, and they completely remove any real way for someone to just leave. These systems are designed to strip away your agency, not protect it. So, why is making this distinction so incredibly important? Well, because confusing consensual practice with abuse doesn't just happen in stories. It creates real-world harm. It creates real-world stigma. This number from the paper is just staggering. 84.3% of people who identify with kink feel like society sees them as perverse or even as criminals. And that's a direct result of the exact kind of confusion we've been talking about. And here it is. This might be the most crucial finding in the whole study. Participants only reported being re-traumatized before they learned about these structural safeguards. That tells you everything. It's the knowledge and the practice of safe consent that makes all the difference between healing and harm. And the research summary really says it best. For some survivors, BDSM isn't a symptom of their trauma. It can actually be part of the solution. But, and this is the most important part, only when it's practiced safely, consensually, and with a real understanding of these principles. Which brings us right back to where we started. The difference between play and pain, between empowerment and abuse. It's not about the aesthetics, is it? It's about the ethics. True surrender in a healthy context is never a violation. It is an act of profound trust, a gift that is freely given and can always be taken back. And you know what? That distinction changes everything.